Welcome to the Deeper Dive presented by Awesemo.com. You got the same fellas back here from this morning, Dave Loughran and Adam Shar. We got a 5-gamer, the same 5-gamer we talked about this morning. But that's okay because we got a fresh new twist for you for tonight's show. And basically that's just following up on everything we haven't talked about because there's a lot of time that goes by between 9 a.m. and now. Adam, how you doing, pal?
Pretty good, man. Feels like we just talked, but looking forward to doing another hour with you.
It's because we did just talk. All right.
Yep.
Anyway, let's just dive right into it. There's not a whole lot that we need to recap from earlier. We did about a 2-hour show. If you're not watching the strategy show every morning, I'd highly suggest you do so. Starts around 9:15 Eastern time every morning and goes pretty much as long as we damn well please. All right, let's jump right into it. And of course, we'll cover everything we did this morning too, because not everyone's able to watch that. Chicago at Indiana facing the Pacers. Victor Oladipo is out indefinitely, Adam. This is kind of surprising news that we got several days back. So that means that Tyreke Evans will once again be starting at the 2 and will once again be playing off the ball, not driving to the rim and not taking shots at the rim. We broke all of it down earlier today. Pacers are 8.5-point favorites, 210 total. Which, oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, now all of the games but Phoenix Sacramento is down below 216 or lower totals on all but one game. This is one of them, sitting at 210. You hear, bud?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'd like froze on the YouTube stream. I was trying to see it.
All right, let's go.
Was there a question or did I miss it?
No, I'm just talking to you. I'm talking to you about this game.
I was reading chat about how I showered and
stuff. You got anything to contribute tonight, dude?
Yeah, man.
Great start, boys.
I can do
Great
it by
start.
myself if you want.
No, but yeah, I mean, the first game, the Chicago-Indiana game, really the whole slate outside of that Sacramento game is just not really that appealing.
All right, good stuff. Let's keep going. What a shit show.
I realize now how hard it is for you when you're trying to read chat and I'm talking to you.
Oh, it's not easy, bro. It's not easy, right? It's very easy to get sidetracked. Very easy. Anyway, Adam and Lafayette have got to have a hair off one day. All right, maybe we will. Maybe we'll both go hat.
Lafayette's got better hair than me.
Dude, well, here's the thing. I'm not even. You know what? We don't have enough time for this. I'm not going to get into the routines. By the way, I forgot to mention this. Welcome to everyone in chat. Everyone that's watching, not with the chat open. Glad to have you here. This. Robert Quick says, "Love how Laffy gets annoyed by someone not listening." I'm not annoyed by him. I'm a culprit of this every show. I think it's hilarious. But I do think it's funny that now you see the other. You get the foot's on the other shoe now, or the shoe's on the other foot. Wow, we should just stop. Okay. Do you want to recap though? I do think this is important. Do you think this? Okay, hold on. Lacey Stockman, Adam working the eye contact while Laffy never looks away from his computer. I got an external camera. It's difficult. It's difficult. When I did the sweat show the other day, the producer emailed me and yelled at me. She's like, "Please look at the camera," with an exclamation point and then put a smiley face like everything was okay. It's tough. It's tough for me.
Do you remember that time we told everyone neither of us smoke weed? I think we're going to have a really hard time selling that after the last 10 minutes.
It's true, though. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming with you wouldn't be lying about it. I'm not. I get paranoid. I actually wish I liked weed. I do. I wish I did. But it doesn't do me as well as it did when I was younger. And I've hesitated to get back there. All right. Plus, chat's probably not going to like that either. Call me a pussy or something. Okay. Can we recap the Tyreke Evans discussion? I thought that was really good analysis earlier today, and I really do believe that we highlighted exactly why, or at least a large reason why he struggled this season.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good discussion as well because if you look at the rates and everything since Oladipo's been out, he still should be good. And something that I had been talking about for a while was that his shooting percentage was lower than we would expect, even for him. But as we talked about today, a big part of that is that he's not getting to the rim. You mentioned the numbers this morning, but he's just driving at a he's averaging many less drives per game. He's not getting to the rim as often. Most of his shots are coming from the perimeter, and he's just not a good shooter. So the fact that his shooting percentage is down is not really surprising. And then on top of that, we always like Evans as a distributor, and that's one of the things that makes him, a good point per minute producer for fantasy. But if you look since Oladipo's been out, he's averaging less potential assists per 36 minutes than Collison, than Cory Joseph, and then Domantas Sabonis. So really just not playing with the ball in his hands, not getting to the rim. It's turned him into a completely different player than we're used to seeing for Tyreke Evans. He used to be a guy that no matter who he was on the floor with, if he was out there, he would have the ball and he'd be running things. But that just hasn't been the case here, and it's reflecting in his numbers.
It's absolutely reflected in his numbers. The less drives to the rim is huge. Even on a per 36 minute basis, he's driving way less. And you mentioned his usage is still high without Evans or without Oladipo. But one of the biggest factors is usage does not take a lot of things into consideration. This is why you and I talk so often about potential assists as well, right? Because in fantasy basketball, that's just as important as usage. And with Tyreke Evans, the potential, what did you say, 6.1 per 36?
It was 6 flat, I think.
6 flat per 36. And the usage is up, but almost all of his shots are the type of shots that I don't want. I want him around the basket like he used to be, and we're just not getting that anymore. And he's playing so much off the ball that it's really hurting his upside. So I think that's really important here. That isn't to say that Reek can't have a couple decent games here and there. I don't think you're saying that either. But
No.
I do think, but I do think it has a lot to do with it. By the way, you know how we lost play type data on NBA.com, and we found out why it was. The feed that they actually get it from is down. Now player tracking touches, it's gone. It's gone.
That's helpful.
I can't believe it. They have paint touches and elbow touches, but actual touches per game, points per touch, it disappeared, evaporated, gone, poof. That sucks, man.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's frustrating just because, especially when you get into this time of the year and you get so many injuries and you get, like 3 or 4 game samples, it's really, really useful to use that kind of stuff to try and extrapolate what, someone's rates should be as opposed to what they've been through 3 or 4 games or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Joe Ingles leading the league in touches through the first week of the season. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you make anything else of this Indiana team? Domantas Sabonis has been spectacular, save from one game where he had more turnovers than points. That's an achievement in his own right. Myles Turner. Anybody else here for the Pacers?
So one other thing that I wanted to just mention on Evans, and another thing that kind of just makes me hesitant to roster him, is I had been under the assumption that his minutes were down in large part because he wasn't playing well, and a combination of that and blowouts. But in that game against the Kings, he actually was reasonably good. The Pacers did well when he was on the floor. He still didn't play in the fourth quarter. So it just still makes me nervous, projecting him for more than like 28 minutes. But, amongst the rest of the guys, I have interest in the front court. Sabonis, the downside is that he's probably going to play 24 to 26 minutes, and a lot has to go right for him to produce there. But it is a Chicago team that struggles to rebound. Sabonis is a very good rebounder. And so for him, I like him up a little bit, but we should get around 30 minutes of Myles Turner here in a pretty nice spot. And then Cory Joseph, I wrote about in the deep dive article today. He's not someone that I really ever like rostering, but on shorter 5-game slates, paying really close attention to where the public is probably going to go, especially on value plays, is obviously really important. Elie Okobo, I expect to be one of the most, if not the most popular plays on the slate from Phoenix. You have Cory Joseph at basically the same price point. And even though we're talking about a small sample size for Okobo, he's averaged about 0.75 fantasy points per minute without Booker or Warren on the floor this year. Joseph's averaged about 0.82 since Oladipo's injury. Joseph probably plays a few less minutes, but I think that he probably scores more points more frequently than his ownership would suggest that he does.
I agree with that. I've actually talked quite extensively about Joseph over the past couple of weeks. A lot of times because there was a while there, one, two, three, four straight games with Oladipo out where Cory Joseph was sub 4K. And I thought that was a decent price point because the minutes, I mean, he's playing at least 27 minutes per game right now. In massive blowouts, 25. In very close games, you're looking at 27 to 31 minutes. Not a spectacular per minute player, but he's also cheap on a 5 game slate against the Bulls. I don't hate that. I can tell you this much. I I prefer him over Ryan Arcidiacono. You know, we had questions about him before that 8 fantasy point game. And the general consensus between the two of us was, look, he's been fine. He's cheap, but there's no way he's going to sustain that production. It's just not, he's not going to shoot 66% from the field every day and knock down 8 of 12 shots. It's not going to happen. He's not going to get 5 steals. And we've seen that. So moving to the Bulls side, you have Zach LaVine, you have Lauri Markkanen, who is starting, and I expect to play 30 to 32 minutes, being that he played 26 minutes in his return. And mind you, outside of conditioning, this was not a lower body injury where they usually work you back slower. This was an elbow injury. Sure, can affect a lot of things, but generally your minutes can ramp up quicker in that case. It's just how much rust he has, what type of stamina or conditioning he's in. 26 minutes in game one. I expect to see plenty of run in this one in the starting lineup, and you're getting him at $5,400 on DraftKings and $62 on FanDuel. The question to you, and I'll follow up when you're done, is I respect the Pacers' defense. I think this is a good defense. Even without Oladipo, they have played quality defense. They also, unsurprisingly, play at a slow pace. But are any of these guys cheap enough, Wendell Carter Jr., Lauri Markkanen, for you to consider today against the Pacers?
Yeah, I think so, especially Wendell Carter on both sites. It sucks that he's only a center on DraftKings, even though, obviously it makes sense. It just sucks. But he's less than 5K there. We've seen 32 minutes 2 games ago, 33 minutes last game, despite losing about 4 minutes to a blowout. So, obviously a new coach here. We don't know what to expect. But my assumption, until it's proven wrong, is that we're not going to see fewer minutes for the young guys that the Bulls should be trying to develop. So I think that Carter, as long as he stays out of foul trouble, which has been a big if all season long, should be in line for 32 to 33, 34 minutes here. And he's just too cheap for that. FanDuel, a little bit more expensive than DraftKings, but he's a power forward. So it's really, really appealing there. So I love Wendell Carter. And then for Markkanen, I don't really like the price tag on FanDuel that much at $6,200, but $5,400 power forward on DraftKings I think is really useful there. And you mentioned the 26 minutes he played last game. One positive kind of subtlety, I guess, that I want to take away from that is that he actually stayed on the floor during the blowout for the last 3 or 4 minutes of that game once all the other key rotation guys were pulled. And, normally we talk about blowout run being a negative because they inflate someone's minutes. But in this case, I think they're a positive because it shows that they're really trying to get Markkanen ramped up and get him back as quickly as possible. Obviously it wasn't a lower body injury. It's just a conditioning question at this point, like you said. So the fact they were able to get him up to 26 minutes there and that they really forced it to happen, I feel a little bit more comfortable pegging him for like 30 to 32 here.
That's where I'm at as well, and I'm cool with that. Saz Crib on in our premium Slack chat said, does Boylan mentioning Boylan is the interim coach, and it looks like he might have himself a job for next year too. Oh, by the way, can I just say that I had, this is Jim. There's Jim Boylan, Boylan. This is great. Remember I said it feels like he's been an interim coach several times before?
Yeah.
Remember I said that earlier today?
Yeah. Right. I'd never heard of the guy, so I didn't know what you're talking about. But
okay, well, check this out. Well, Jim Boylan, Boylan, was the interim coach for the Bulls. He was the interim coach for the Bucks. May have even been an interim coach for the Magic. This Jim Boylan, Boylen, is the interim coach for the Bulls 10 years later.
That's weird.
That's really weird. I really thought it was the same Boylan. I'm like, that's kind of strange because the other Jim Boylan's always the damn interim coach, like waiting in the wings. I swear he's doing something to screw it up so he can come on in there and snipe it out. But yeah, it's a different Jim Boylan. Anyway, back to the question that I thought was interesting. Now, I haven't seen this quote. I will look into it. He said, does Boylen mentioning that he wanted to work the bigs more as facilitators make them more interesting? If that's true, then yeah, certainly. I mean, there's nothing better than a big man that can facilitate and rebound and score. So yes, I mean the answer is yes, but at the same time, Adam, I'd have to look into that. Not to say I think he's lying, just that I didn't see it.
Yeah, and also, it's worth pointing out that Carter can play that role. So it's not like it's a quote that you should be reading into it and saying, like, oh shit, Wendell Carter's going to lose minutes because he's not
Right.
offensively talented enough to play that role. I think that's a good sign for him.
Agreed. And here it is, by the way. Jim Boylen, look for Boylen to use his big men as facilitators in half-court sets, especially since Markkanen, Wendell Carter Jr., and backup Robin Lopez are all willing passers. Don't be surprised to see Markkanen playing center at times since Boylen isn't true. So I didn't see Boylen say this, but this is an article just basically from NBC Sports Chicago, basically highlighting how he's coached in the past. Boylen with an E, not with an A. Okay, anything else on this one?
I don't think so. I mean, LaVine on FanDuel is kind of appealing because you have to roster 2 shooting guards and the position is pretty bad. But as far as priorities go, I'm much more interested in the front court here.
All right, sounds good. Let's keep it moving. We got 4 games to get to. Miami and Orlando. Another game, low total. This is down to 207. Every total is dropped throughout the day, by the way. 207 total. Miami 2.5-point favorites. Going back again to what we said this morning, you may get annoyed by that, but I'm trying to preface it for the people that have already watched. Now you're getting some players back in this rotation. Jones is listed as available. Rodney McGruder, is he still a game time decision?
Last I saw, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And then Tyler Johnson is also available to play. So outside of Goran Dragic, this team is I guess Dwyane Wade, if you want to consider that, but this team, if McGruder plays, will have now 12 bodies?
Yeah, and I mean you have James Johnson questionable too, which makes a difference. But yeah, this is definitely a team that we're gonna have to just watch. Hopefully, we get news during the show, but if not, watch up to a lock, because if everyone's healthy, then there's not really anything outside of Hassan Whiteside that I find particularly interesting. But if 1 or 2 of these guys end up sitting, then it opens up some minutes and it becomes much more interesting for guys like Justice Winslow, potentially Kelly Olynyk, depending on who it is that sits.
Right, and right, I forgot to mention that this afternoon we got news that James Johnson was questionable, so there is that. So we'll stay tuned for all that. And Domantas Sabonis, I think everyone expected him to play, but he will play. Back injury is not going to keep him out tonight. Let's talk about Miami, preferably not too long. Same thing I've been saying for a while. It's just very difficult to confidently project who's going to get the minutes, and not only who's going to get the minutes, but who's going to get the usage. Where's even like Josh Richardson recently has been producing underwhelming totals. Not every game, but you're going to see some bad games because you have guys waiting in the wings like Dwyane Wade, who is playing upwards of 30, 34 minutes in games where he's playing well. Dwyane Wade's playing well. He's going to take on more responsibility as a ball handler, as a scorer. The same thing goes for a lot of players on this team. It makes things very difficult to evaluate, even in a good matchup against the Orlando Magic.
Right. I mean, if we assume everyone's in, then other than Josh Richardson and Whiteside, where I'm trying to project him for tournaments, I don't have anyone playing more than 30 minutes if everyone's active for this team, because they just have so many guys that play the same position. Richardson's the one that is clearly locked into a 34 to 36 minute role. His price tag is okay. I don't think there's a ton of excess value there. Whiteside's the one that's most interesting to me, just because we know how volatile he is, but it makes it so his price tag is just kind of at a point where if he does play 32 to 34 minutes, he's pretty likely to exceed where you're hoping he gets to in tournaments. He obviously comes with risk because of those minutes. So if we were to have him projected for, really high ownership, then it's a spot where you can go to any of these other centers that are really good. But assuming that the volatility keeps his ownership down a bit, I think that Whiteside's a good tournament play here.
So do I. He's always a good tournament play when he's at this price. It's a very solid price point. And I think if you wanted to take a simple approach in evaluating whether or not he is, ask yourself. Vooch is $9K on DraftKings. Rudy Gobert is $8,600. Vooch is 9,700 on FanDuel. Gobert's 9,500. Nurkic is 8,400. Hassan Whiteside's 8,200. So he's 1,500 and 1,300 cheaper than Vooch and Gobert, respectively, on FanDuel. And on DraftKings, he's 1,300 and 900 less than those two, again, respectively. So I find that at that price, knowing that he has very similar upside, potentially more upside than Rudy Gobert, and right around the same, maybe a little less than Vooch. Now, probably the same. That alone makes him a quality tournament play in a good overall matchup if he gets the minutes.
Right. The only thing that scares, well, the only thing outside of the minutes issue that scares me about Whiteside is that there are so many really cheap centers with upside on this slate that you're obviously taking on risk with Whiteside from a minute standpoint. But even if he does go out there and get you, let's say, 45 fantasy points, which you're pretty happy with at his price, I think there's a decent chance that one of these other guys like Cauley-Stein or Ayton or Carter, probably not getting 45, but could still just like blow their salaries away to where you kind of took on extra risk for no reason.
I agree. A couple really good questions in chat. I think we should actually hit on all of these. I'll backpedal real quick and then we'll get to the ones in this current game. Where is it? Robert Woods, will Parker get more usage coming off the bench? I don't think so. The only reason I say that, generally speaking, I would say yes, but he's already seen his usage increase exponentially lately, and I don't see him taking, or increasing from 17 to 18, 16, 17, 18 shots a game. I think we've already seen that, and it's reflected in his price point. So for me, Adam, now that he's coming off the bench and Markkanen's expected to see probably 30-plus minutes, and we have a new coach, I don't think usage increases that much. And if it does, it's going to come with with lost minutes.
Right. I mean,
what do you think?
Yes, since they changed the starting lineup and put Parker and Arcidiacono into it, Parker has like a 26% usage rate. So I don't expect it to go up much, especially because Zach LaVine still projects to play like 38 minutes. So the most you're getting is 10 minutes of Parker without LaVine. And that's what makes the big impact on his usage. So I don't think it goes up. If it does, I don't think it goes up by enough to offset the decrease in minutes.
Agreed. I also saw a couple people saying that Zach LaVine would be chalk. I didn't get that impression. I'm admittedly not great at projecting ownership, but I don't know. You think LaVine's going to be chalk here?
Probably more so on FanDuel, just because you have to roster two. Right. I haven't looked at our projected ownership yet, but I'd be surprised if he is on DraftKings.
On DraftKings, we have him around 15%. And on FanDuel, we have LaVine projected at 22%, which makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. It's 22%. By the way, if you wanted to get a look at the ownership projections, the premium article that Adam and I labor over every single day, we switch off the deep dive, our projections, everything from Osimo himself, Alex Baker. You can do so for free for an entire week. All you have to do is use the promo code in the bottom right corner of your screen, Deeper Dive, all one word. When you click the Join Now on our homepage, you click Join Now, you pick out what plan you want, and at checkout, you'll be prompted to enter the promo code, Deeper Dive, one word, and you get a free week behind paywall, everything. And if you like it, you can hang around. If you don't, I think you will. But you know what? No harm, no foul. So check it out, Deeper Dive. Hopefully, we will see you over there. All right. On the other side of this, you have Orlando. And I feel like this is another spot where Vooch could have a monster game. I don't worry about matchups with him. You are going to pay a premium for him, though. As a matter of fact, Vooch is the second highest priced player on this entire slate.
Right. And the one thing on shorter slates that you have to keep in mind is, while on a bigger slate, it would be tougher to get to Vooch here because you're really thinking about point per dollar and how good he has to do to beat that whole mid-range of centers here. With smaller slates, especially ones like this where you don't have a superstar player, there's only so many guys that have 50 to 60 fantasy point upside. So it attaches more value to guys like Lillard and Vucevic, even if they don't project as the best point per dollar options. And then I think it is a really good matchup. You and I talked earlier, and I think it's been talked about a lot because these teams play each other pretty frequently. But Whiteside's a good defender around the rim. He's nowhere near as effective when he has to chase guys around and try and close out on mid-range and three-pointers.
He's not really effective at all in that case, actually.
Right. Yeah, he becomes a liability in that case. And
Yeah,
it just makes it a very favorable matchup for Vucevic. Whiteside's a good enough rebounder to where, maybe his rebounding takes a little bit of a hit potentially, Vucevic, but I think he just is in a good spot to be efficient on the offensive end. And we've just seen him be an absolute monster this year. Rebounding, scoring, even facilitating. He has the highest assist percentage on the Magic other than the 2 point guards. So just so many ways for him to
incredible.
get there. I think that he's a really good play if you can find the money for him.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing the number that you just mentioned in terms of his assists, or his assist rate. More potential assists this season for Vooch than ever in his career. That shouldn't be a surprise. He's already triple doubled. I think he came 1 assist shy from a triple double like a week ago too. 7.6 potential assists per game. Another thing that I generally don't like for centers, you'll hear me harp on this a lot, but in this specific matchup, I do like it. Vooch will shoot from anywhere on the court. He only shoots 24% of the time within 3 feet of the rim. 29.5% of the time from 4 to 10 feet, 13% from 10 to 16, 15% from 16 out to the arc or to the 3-point line, and 18% from 3. He's shooting 80% from the rim, 53% from 4 to 10 feet, 40% from 10 to 16, 50% from 16 out, and 41% from 3-point range. So he shoots pretty much average or above average from everywhere, which means it wouldn't be at all surprising to see him use that range against Hassan Whiteside tonight. It's just a matter of, do you want to pay a premium for him? Because he is priced at a premium on both sides.
Yeah, exactly. It just comes down to where you're able to save money at other positions. It's tough because it's especially tough, I think, on FanDuel because he's up to 9,700 and there are just so many centers and you can only roster one. But on DraftKings, where obviously you can roster 2 centers, I think it's a bit easier.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kyle Geis says, "Give me all the Gordon. Nobody can really stay in front of him outside of maybe Jay Rich. Well, I don't think they're not going to guard him with Richardson. What are your thoughts on that?
I think he's fine. I mean, if James Johnson plays, that's a downgrade for Gordon, I think. But more so, it's just that we haven't seen Gordon be that productive this season. Like I like him. I think he has a ceiling for sure, but he just hasn't been like he has a 22% usage rate. For context, that puts him behind Vucevic. It puts him behind Fournier. It puts him behind Terrence Ross, who's playing 28 to
Yep.
30 minutes off the bench. And rebounding, he has a 12% rebounding percentage because you have Vooch grabbing so many rebounds. You have part of the time Jonathan Isaac's out there on the floor with him as well. Bamba is playing when Vooch isn't there, so he's not really a priority from the rebounding standpoint either. He can get there just on athleticism, and he's going to have some monster games, but we've seen it just be much more infrequent this season than in previous years.
Just to put it into perspective, Vooch is averaging 16 and a half rebound chances per 31 minutes, his minutes per game. I haven't calculated them. Gordon, 10.6 per 32.2 minutes, which is not great because you consider this. Isaac is averaging 9 potential rebounds per 23 minutes, and Mo Bamba 8 rebound chances per 17. I mean, you're definitely right that someone like Vooch is taking rebound opportunities away from Gordon, but he's averaging only 5 more rebound chances per game than Evan Fournier and Jonathan Simmons. So you would like to see better numbers there from somebody like Gordon, who will definitely have those games where he just disappears. And last year he played less or the same minutes per game and averaged almost 14 rebound chances. So that's just one stat. I get it, but I do think his rebounding has taken a hit this year, and it has affected his fantasy performance overall. All right. Do you want to move on, or is there anything else in this game you want to discuss?
I mean, if 5 game slate, if you're playing like 150 lineups, I think Fournier or Ross are both fine. Not guys that I would be prioritizing though.
All right, fair enough. By the way, if you enjoy our content, even when we go ridiculously off track and make and make unmitigated fools of ourselves, hit that like button. It helps us greatly. We appreciate it. Dallas, Portland. Here's another one. Look at this total, 216. That's a high one for this slate. Dallas, 1.5 point favorites here at home, where they've played a lot better on the season. Luka Doncic is expected to play. Outside of that, a lot of these guys are expected to play. but to repeat from this morning, right now, it has still not been ruled. We're waiting, and I will let you know as soon as we get this information. But Dennis Smith, Salah Mezri, JJ Barea. By the way, people were talking about him being white. His name is Jose Juan Barea. So
He's from Spain.
Puerto Rico.
Okay.
But I don't. He's not. Exactly. Maybe it's Juan Jose. No, it's Jose Juan. Jose Juan Barea. Yeah, Puerto Rican. I think people pointed that out in chat anyway. He's questionable. Dwight Powell, Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber. Like, they got a bunch of guys that are questionable tonight.
Yeah. Assuming that they play, if one of them sits though, then, obviously it opens stuff up and it makes this a much more appealing game.
It does. So how are you playing this right now outside of waiting for news?
Yeah. I mean, if we assume everyone's in, it's tough to really prioritize anything here. Like, DeAndre Jordan is in a fine spot, should play around 34 minutes, but there's a whole list of centers that I like more than him, and that's why I won't be able to prioritize him. Luka Doncic is fine, but as we talked about at length this morning, he's only a point guard on DraftKings. He's a shooting guard on FanDuel, which is nice. But one thing that actually I found interesting about Luka, and obviously it's not the biggest sample size because he's a rookie, but so far this year, if you you look at standard deviation and you can kind of get an idea of of upside for guys. But he has one of the lowest standard deviations among regular players this year, which is good in terms of cash games. Like, he's not that volatile, but on the other side in tournaments, you're looking for volatility and you're looking for guys that semi-frequently have outlier performances, and that hasn't been the case this year. So it makes it tougher for me to like him in tournaments when I can get guys at a similar price point like De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah, it's tough because De'Aaron Fox has just been so much more productive than a lot of these players, especially given that De'Aaron Fox is capable of producing despite poor shooting performances, and a lot of those guys aren't. Paul, I can't pronounce the last name. Shout out to the touts that clearly don't know basketball. Well, appreciate that. I'd love you to take a look at some other shows and come back with that same thought process, with that same opinion. I have a feeling you might feel differently, but you know what? To each their own. What do you got on Dallas outside of the guys you've mentioned? We have a ton of questions flowing in. It's just really tough to answer all of them right now with these question marks. So assuming that everybody's in, or assuming that all of the relevant players are in, how do you prioritize these guys? You just talked about Jordan. I agree. You can't really prioritize him at a center position that, despite only 5 games, is deep once again. Outside of that, though, I would need to look at a Wesley Matthews or a Harrison Barnes. I would need even though Barnes is playing big minutes, but he's just one of those guys who he needs injuries in order to boost the usage and the rebounding totals. You can point to his last game, sure, but that's an exception to the rule in most cases. I would need injuries to really lock those guys in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in terms of the slate, I'm not prioritizing anyone from this team, but in terms of who I like the most, it would go Luka, and then Jordan, Wes Matthews because he's cheap, Barnes, Dennis Smith.
All right. Hey, by the way, Lauri Markkanen will be limited to 24-28 minutes today. Which is funny, given that he played 26 minutes in his first game.
Is there a source on that?
I will tell you right now. Because
they had last game, there was a Chicago paper that said 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard to make much sense of it. And obviously, hold on. I am going to, one second. Let me see what we can pull up here, because this is kind of important.
Jim Boylan said it.
Okay.
But I'm saying, Jim Boylan, do we know who tweeted it? I'm looking for
Bulls
the actual
beat writer. Darnell Mayberry.
The Bulls beat writer. Okay, there we go. So we have a viable source. Plus, Fred Hoiberg's not there anymore.
Right.
So, I mean, even though Markkanen played 16 minutes in his first game, there could definitely be some differing opinions in terms of coaching from Boylan with an E.
Yeah. I'm still going to the upper end of that, though, in projections.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see any reason why you'd play 26 and then be limited to 24 the following night if you actually believe in this guy, which you should. They absolutely need Lauri Markkanen in terms of actually being able to keep up with opposing teams' 3-point shooting. I mean, yeah, Zach LaVine jacks up a bunch of threes, but outside of that, you're not relying on Arcidiacono to get the job done. I'm personally not expecting Justin Holiday to continue, shooting 10, 13 threes a game. None of that makes sense to me.
And I mean, LaVine jacks up threes. Markkanen actually makes his, so it's a little bit more helpful.
Exactly. Yeah. Jabari Parker shooting 29% from three this year. That it's not exactly it doesn't bode well for this team. So we'll see. But even 28 minutes to me is not off the board. I'm okay with that. What about the Portland side? Yusuf Nurkic, 74 on DraftKings. They finally bumped him up above 7K, and 84 on FanDuel, which is actually pretty reasonable given that in close games he's playing 30-plus minutes every night.
Sorry, it broke up for a second. I didn't hear who the player was.
I was talking about Yusuf Nurkic. Price bump finally, but on DraftKings, 7,400 still isn't crazy at all.
Yeah, it's the problem with Nurkic here, I think, is I don't think he's underpriced at all. It's just that there are so many centers that it's tough for me to prioritize him in what, isn't the easiest matchup here. I think that he's perfectly fine. And if I'm playing, 150 lineups, I would certainly have some Nurkic because he's still a guy that's averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute. And he should play around 32 minutes here, assuming he stays out of foul trouble. That's basically what we've seen all season long from him. So I think he's a perfectly fine play, just not a priority relative to other options.
Yeah. Once again, center is always one of the deepest positions, and that doesn't change tonight. We haven't even talked about Ayton yet. We'll get to him. Both centers in that game, actually. So with Nurkic is kind of in no man's land, right? He's in that price where could he have a big game, a solid game? Yes, he could. You're talking about a guy that's averaging 25 rebound chances per 36. So that is second most in the league behind only Andre Drummond of guys that are actually playing 20 minutes per game or more. So the numbers can be there. And Nurkic is actually a pretty strong facilitator, but he is in a weird spot. And I agree that not a priority at this price point now that he's bumped up. If he was the same price as Ayton and Cauley-Stein like we've seen, I think it'd be a totally different conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
All right, what else do you have for Portland?
Dame Lillard. I mean, the price tag is, like, if this were a bigger slate, I would say the price tag was kind of egregious, but raw points really matter on these slates, and it shouldn't be that difficult to find money for him. He's very likely to be, one of the highest scoring, raw scoring guys on the slate. So you can overpay a little bit for that on slates like this, especially when you do have some value from the Suns that is in a pretty nice spot. So I think Dame Lillard's fine. If you don't get to him, then I don't think it's someone you have to force in. But I just think that he's someone we can kind of overlook the price tag because of it being a 5-game slate.
Greek Inc. says no one's talking about DeAndre Jordan. You talked about him.
Yeah, he's okay. He would probably be my 7th favorite center or something.
Yeah, I would. And then someone else said, where is this? He says, so many centers. It's a 5-game slate. Yeah, it's a 5-game slate with 7 viable centers.
Yeah, I think if you went through and actually, if you went through and actually looked at the best plays on the slate, I would guess that it's probably 60% of the top 10 are centers.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. All right, let's keep going here. We got 2 games to go, and then we'll close this out. Utah at home against San Antonio. We've got ourselves another barn burner here. 216 total, kind of surprising. 8.5 points. Utah is favored at home in this one. Kind of surprising to see them as 8.5 point favorites, given how much they've struggled. San Antonio hasn't been much better, but I'm not really a firm believer that this Utah team is all that great either. The arrival of Kyle Korver, sure, it helps with spot up shooting, but you're not talking about somebody that's going to generate and create his own plays. So I just, does it help them? Will it create a few more points per game? Sure, but it's not enough. It's not enough to put them over the top. Might be against San Antonio Adam, but I mean, how much do you really prioritize a $8,600 Gobert on DraftKings, 95 on FanDuel? That's kind of tough to do.
Yeah, I can't get to Gobert here just because of the price tag. Too close to Nikola Vucevic at that top end for me, and more expensive than other guys that we like. But I am actually more interested in Utah overall than I was this morning when we talked about it. San Antonio, they don't play fast, but they have been really bad defensively, which we've talked about several times this year. But going back and looking at Utah's last game, they played against Miami. There were a couple things that stood out. For one, you saw more minutes for guys like Rubio and Donovan Mitchell than we had been seeing. And I don't think it would be surprising to maybe see Quinn Snyder start giving a couple more minutes a night to his better players to try and get things turned around with Utah. And if that's going to happen, that's something that, in tournaments, I'll gladly jump on it and hope that that's a trend that we start to see instead of waiting for him to officially say it or for it to become painfully obvious that that's what's going on. Because until people figure it out, you're getting an edge for a couple of games there. So maybe, giving Donovan Mitchell a couple of extra minutes and giving Rubio a couple of extra minutes makes sense. But also, Raul Neto and Dante Exum only combined for 5 or 6 minutes in that game against Miami. You saw Donovan Mitchell getting a bunch of time. He's played with the second unit all season long, but normally it's with another ball handler out there. Against Miami, it wasn't. So you can actually project for 8 to 10 minutes of Mitchell's time, him to be more involved as a facilitator as well. So a little bit of a boost for him too. I think they're much better priced on DraftKings than on FanDuel. But I think that Mitchell, Rubio, even Joe Ingles and Jae Crowder, who played 34 minutes against Miami, are all actually pretty reasonable options that probably go a little bit overlooked in tournaments because of San Antonio's reputation and the fact that this game overall isn't that appealing.
Yeah, it's not appealing at all. The one guy that and you can make arguments on a 5-game slate for Rubio. I guess for Mitchell, I know some people like Mitchell today. That's fine. I think he's a bit pricey given our other options, but I think he's fine. But I don't love him, and I feel that way pretty much about everybody here. If you ask me, what do you think of Jae Crowder and Joe Ingles? I'd say, if you have them, you have them. If they fit, fine. But I'm not starting my lineup with anyone from the Utah Jazz. I just can't do it. Sorry to be wishy-washy, but all of these guys are priced pretty accurately. Even Rubio with Mitchell back is not really that underpriced, and some of them might be overpriced. So I'm okay fading there, or at least.
I think they're underpriced on DraftKings.
Do you? Who?
Yeah, all of Mitchell, Rubio, Ingles, Crowder. All
is that underpriced?
Underpriced, yeah.
I guess. I think 79 for Mitchell's pretty rare or pretty reasonable, but I can see it. I mean, I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue you on that one. I think Ingles and Crowder at 5K and Gobert at 86 and Mitchell at 79. I could see Rubio, but even so, Rubio's so volatile with Mitchell in the lineup that it's 20 fantasy points or 40. You never know which one you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, solely tournament plays for me, but like I was saying, I just think that it could be trending towards these guys getting a couple more minutes and playing a little bit more, and then Mitchell getting more basically point guard duties as well. So I think that this could be a spot that just goes a little bit overlooked in tournaments.
Yeah, Adam Seville. Pardon the pronunciation. It don't really have to be efficient if you're potentially taking 30 shots. No, dude, you're absolutely right. You don't at all. But you do have to make some of those shots. And we've seen him. He took 24 shots last game, had 30 fantasy points. Mitchell still needs some peripherals to hit value. And that's all I'm saying. And I don't know that's going to be the case. I don't hate the guy. Just I'm not prioritizing him. I will say we're going to get to the last game here, but Elie Okobo is going to be pretty popular. I think we can both agree on that. With no Devin Booker in the lineup, even though he sucked last game, he's still going to be probably a top 5 owned guy, maybe top 3. But I will have a little bit of Derek White here just to kind of counter that. White's played 33 minutes in back-to-back games. He's seeing a decent amount of assist opportunities. He's handling the ball enough, and Pop has decided to give him minutes in a reasonably close game and in a blowout. So I think this could be here to stay. Not to mention that, Bryn Forbes isn't exactly proving or carrying his weight. So Derek White would be just a pivot off of Okobo, who is just as capable of having a garbage game. What do you have from San Antonio? And then we'll move on to the last one here.
Yeah, I think Bellinelli being probable for this one takes any appeal of Derek White for me away. I think it's tougher for him to get up over 30 minutes here. LaMarcus Aldridge is really the only guy from San Antonio that I'm interested in. I think it's actually a pretty good spot for him here against Gobert. We've seen opposing centers actually be very productive against Utah. And Aldridge, obviously he has power forward eligibility on DraftKings. He is a power forward on FanDuel, which makes him really appealing. Front end of a back-to-back, as you pointed out this morning, so a little bit of risk there. But I think if you project him for around 34 minutes, he comes in as a pretty decent option.
All right. I do too, actually. Outside of Pop wanting to limit his minutes, this is my biggest concern with Aldridge, is they are on their first end of a back-to-back. And I worry that Aldridge directly suffers from that and plays like 30 minutes and then 30 minutes in the second back-to-back. I could be wrong, but it wouldn't surprise me if one of these back-to-backs we see his minutes limited. We saw him play 40 against Golden State, then 30 the following night. I think depending on how close this game is, will really, really change the direction of Aldridge's minutes and potential output. So just throwing that out there. Keep in mind that this is Greg Popovich still, and they are playing their first of a back-to-back. Wouldn't be surprised to get news that Rudy Gay is resting either. So just stay tuned for any updates. All right, Adam. Last game here. Before we do, everybody that's been watching knows this. At Awesemo, we're doing 24 days of giveaways from now until Christmas Eve. And that means that anybody watching this show is eligible. We're doing random giveaways every single day, eligible to win a free rest of the season NFL package. We're going to give away one per day over the first week. And then at the end, we are going to pick one random winner to win an all-access premium yearly membership for free from our gift to you. So you can also do this for every show that you watch. The morning show, the strategy show, the deeper dive from A to B, you name it, all of them. We got you. You can submit as many entries as there are shows a day. All you have to do is like the video and leave a comment below. I don't have anything creative. Leave a comment. Leave something funny. Maybe you'll stand out and we'll say, screw the randomness. But leave something good. There were some awesome ones, by the way, on today's show. I went back and read them, and they were very good. So props to all of you fellas. But yeah, that's it. Pretty cool giveaway. All you got to do is like and leave a comment, and then we will be giving away randomly selected each and every day all the way up until Christmas Eve. Good luck to everybody. All right, let's go to the last one. Phoenix and Sacramento, 223 total. If a certain player is chalk on the slate, this entire game is chalk, Adam, with no Warren and no Booker.
Yeah, I agree. And just the most appealing game here between, a fast-paced Sacramento team that isn't great defensively and a not as fast Phoenix team that is even worse defensively.
What do you got here with Phoenix?
I mean, so Okobo clearly played the guy in cash games. There's just no reason to take a stand against one of the highest owned values on the slate when he should play, north of 30 minutes here. He, without Booker and Warren on the floor this season, he's averaged about 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute, but he has about a 23% usage rate. He has around a 26% assist percentage. So I don't think it would be surprising to see him do better on a permanent basis as the sample size increases. I know projection models like him quite a bit more than 0.75 fantasy points per minute as well, especially in what's a really big pace up spot against Sacramento. So the only argument really for me against Okobo is that he's probably going to be really popular and things could go poorly. Like it's not like he's a proven player that we have a huge sample size on, but I think he's too good for the opportunity and the price tag. So outside of maybe getting away from him for ownership reasons, I don't have anything to dislike there. Josh Jackson, basically the same thing for me. We've seen him play much better lately than he did earlier this year when Booker was out, and he played his way right to the bench and actually entirely out of the rotation because he was turning the ball over every other time he touched it, not even as an exaggeration. But assuming he plays well and doesn't do anything insanely stupid in this one, you should get 34 to 36 minutes from him. Has a 30% usage rate without Booker or Warren on the floor, 0.8 fantasy points per minute, but only a 39% true shooting percentage compared to a little over 45% for the season. So that's another one where it's a like 130 minute sample size, and you expect him to be more productive on a permanent basis than he has been. I think that, he's just clearly one of the better value options. Again, you can pivot for ownership reasons, but he just projects as a really good play.
All right, I got to cut you off. We're 5:59. We're running out of time here. Give me your top priorities from Phoenix.
Ayton, Okobo, Jackson.
All right, and I will throw in, if you want to punt Jamal Crawford, there's potential that he sees minutes. He's also a guy that relies solely on scoring, so be mindful of that. He is cheap, though. Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox, very good play. Willie Cauley-Stein, phenomenal play. Marvin Bagley is out. I'm going to lead this to you. You got 30 seconds about. Go ahead. And you can hit us up in Slack chat or on Twitter. Any questions we don't get to, go.
Cauley-Stein's my favorite play from the Kings, followed by Buddy Hield, followed by De'Aaron Fox. Bjelica could get minutes, but keep in mind Bagley was out last game. He played about 19 minutes. Minutes went to Justin Jackson and Troy Williams.
All right. And by the way, if you're wondering why we didn't spend a ton of time on this game, number one, it's because we get caught up sometimes. But number two, this game is actually a lot more straightforward, Adam, than so many of these other games. It's you know what I mean, right? Yeah. It's, do you like this guy? Yep, probably do. So that's really what it comes down to. Go ahead and do this way as you prioritize. You mentioned those players. Who are you prioritizing for the Kings? Or just give me your list of where you have them in order of ownership. Or I'm sorry, exposure.
I haven't crunched lineups, but Cauley-Stein's my favorite, then Hield, then Fox, then Bogdanovich. And Bjelica's minutes I don't think necessarily go up just because Bagley's out.
I have Cauley-Stein up there as well, along with Bogdanovich and Fox. Obviously, Buddy Hield is also a very solid play. 6K flat on FanDuel, really solid price. But I like Bogdanovich actually a little bit more here on DraftKings. I'm loving what we're getting from this guy. And with Bagley out, Josh told me that we can go for another minute, so we will. With Bagley out, the minutes, I know you didn't get a ton to talk about that. So Harry Giles last game played like 7 minutes, and Bjelica in that same game played 20 minutes. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, Bjelica, I think if he plays well, probably has a path to be a good play just because he doesn't have Bagley there to force him off the floor. But it's far from a sure thing just because, I mean, we just saw it happen. Bagley was out. He played 19, 20 minutes, and you got a bunch of minutes for like Justin Jackson, Troy Williams. Shumpert kept his, like 28. So I don't think it's like a safe play going to Bjelica.
All right. Fair enough. Neither do I, by the way. I think it does, though, make certain guys more appealing, like Cauley-Stein. I'm not saying that Bagley's playing a bunch of minutes at the 5, but with the way that the rotations are going to work, if they're not going to give a bunch of these bigs those minutes at the 4, then Willie Cauley-Stein should certainly be very safe in his minutes. Costa Koufos maybe play 15 or so. And then, of course, the other guys remain safe, including Bogdanovich, who, as you mentioned earlier, is actually getting some minutes at the point, which helps him even further and is why I actually have him slightly above Buddy Hield. Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Thanks to all of you guys for watching. We love you. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Deeper Dive. Good luck tonight. Stick around. Live Before a Lot coming up. Josh has got so much to talk about. You don't want to miss this one.